Thank you so much, Prof. I mean, because it touches on the existence of some of us who are Nigerians when that kind of question comes across. But again, the kind of response that President Muhammadu Buhari gave in London also has generated a lot of responses and reactions from Nigerians alike. And one would be wondering, he said at first that he did not...
responses actually.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Go ahead, please.
There were two responses. His first response was a class act for me. I'm not interested in, his first response was, I'm not interested in, that was his set-piece response. I'm not interested in apologies. Because look, racists are going to be racist, arrogant colonialists are going to be arrogant colonialists. It's not the business of our president to change them, okay? And so he said, I'm not interested in that. I'm focused on getting asset repatriation. There are assets of my people that are in your country. If I can get your help to get those back to my people, that's it. Stop your apology. That is a class response, and that I totally agree with. The throwaway response of to the question, is Nigeria fantastically corrupt, to which he said yes, that I totally disagree with. I don't think it's the place of the president to do that, and at best, I will give him a buy on that, you know, he was giving a throwaway comment. But I don't think that's the business of our president to get involved with that kind of comment. No.
Okay. Again, one would be wondering, at this point, I mean, your experience in the public and the private sector, one would be wondering, how do we get it right, especially for President Muhammadu Buhari, who has taken anti-corruption fight as into the front burner of his administration's performance or activities? How do we get it right to make sure that impunity that you talked about is a major problem in the Nigerian society? How do we get to have a system that is less of impunity in every sense of it?
We've got to have a society in which there are consequences for malfeasance. It's that simple. And consequences not just for poor people, but particularly for rich and big people. Okay, rules must apply to big people and to the children and daughters and sons and friends and associates of big people. Because when you don't apply rules to people who look big and talk big and act big and are connected with big, what you do is you delegitimize rules. Poor people will then believe that rules are also not supposed to apply to them. And before you know it, you end up with vigilante society, and that actually is where we are. Do it yourself is the primary rule in Nigeria. Everybody protects themselves. That is why ultimately we're ending up with these situations of banditry in the hinterlands of Nigeria, where farmers and pastoralists believe nobody is there to protect them, and therefore they do what? Everyone carries an AK-47. The farmer carries an AK-47. The pastoralist carries an AK-47. It's a level killing field. Why? Because we don't believe that rules should apply to rich people. We don't believe that rules should apply to ministers, to judges, to lawyers, to police officers. Everyone is what? Staff. Have you heard the rule of staff? You know, somebody will walk into a place where there is organized process for doing things and wield an identity card and say, I am staff. Now, and I am staff is supposed to be a mechanism for doing what? For destroying processes and destroying rules that should apply to everybody. You are clearing immigration at Murtala Muhammad Airport or at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, or you're in a general hospital, and someone comes and says, I am staff, with 4 or 5 passports or 10 passports. They want to jump the queue. What kind of nonsense is that? And we all supposed to tolerate it.
Prof,
now, if I this kind of thing that also enables a member of the National Assembly to say, I am staff, and the thing that enables a senator to say, I am staff, and the minister says, I am staff, and the governor says, I am staff, and before you know it, our common patrimony is destroyed by staff. Now, we've got to fight all of this nonsense.
Professor Odinkalu, if I may quickly hop in here, some people have suggested more severe penalties for some kind of offenses, some criminal offenses, some, for example, graft issues. Would you suggest, or would you suggest, for example, penalties as severe as a death penalty for some criminal offenses?
Absolutely not. No.
How severe? How severe? The
person who goes to commit a crime. The person that goes to commit a crime is not thinking about what punishment will I get if I am caught. The first thing they are thinking about is, will I get caught? So the first thing we've got to do is focus on catching the criminals, catching the people who steal our money, and putting them through a credible process of trial and hopefully getting conviction. That means making sure we have proper evidence. But you're not going to have proper evidence in white-collar crime, which for the most part corruption is, if you do not have a documented and documentary society. Because the biggest thing that has fed corruption is that the government, particularly under the Obasanjo administration, between 1999 to 2007, destroyed mechanisms of documented transactions. And by the time you were ending up with the Jonathan administration, people were extracting hundreds of billions of government assets and distributing them in totally undocumented and therefore unprovable transactions. So things like the BVN, the TSA and its implementation, electronic payments, are supposed hopefully to create mechanisms through which you can get evidence for prosecutions. Once you do that, I don't honestly care whether you give people 6 months or 60 years. As long as there is conviction for a corruption-related offense, that person is out of the system. And we have a system for documenting that, for making sure it's provable and retrievable, so that we don't have the kind of thing that James Ibori did. James Ibori was convicted twice for crimes related to character, and therefore should not have run as governor of Delta State in 1999. And yet, our Supreme Court could not validate the convictions, notwithstanding that they happened in our system. So we've got to create a documented and documentary society. When we do that, I don't want to bother myself with capital punishment and no capital punishment. I don't think that arises at all. The important thing is that we have a credible system that's able to investigate, document, prosecute, capture the prosecutions and convictions, and be able to show that these people who are not supposed to be in the political system, in administrative systems, in systems of responsibility, don't come back to do the things for which we convicted them.
Thank you so much, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, former chairman, the National Human Rights Commission, talking to us from Abuja studio. And thanks for talking to us, Professor Odinkalu. All right, next on the program, and when we return, we'll talk more about the fantastically corrupt comment by the British Prime Minister David Cameron, and of course, attention will also shift to President Muhammadu Buhari's programs, his recent government's actions, and the APC manifestos. That's next. Join us again.